One of the best parts about the internet is that it can expose people to different media, experiences, and views. When it comes to media analysis, this is a huge benefit. Being able to talk to people from all over the world means that you can see how different people feel about the same story. You might learn something interesting, discover a headcanon you like, or even just have a different perspective to read and go, that's a stretch. So here I am, adding my own analysis as well. It's finally time to talk about that Warriors Bollywood thing I keep going on about. This is something I've wanted to talk about for a long time, and honestly, there's a lot of things I could not fit in here. Each book of Warriors adds a lot to this interpretation and would extend the production time of this video a lot more than it already has been. Let's start with a very quick intro. Warrior Cats is a book series written by Aaron Hunter, focused on groups of cats living in the wild. These cats have their own society and laws that they abide by, with the conflicts largely centering social and political struggles, both within their groups as well as with other animals or humans, usually resolved through violence. Bollywood is the film industry in Bombay, also known as Mumbai, in India. That is the only definition and requirement. There are trends and themes in Bollywood movies, but they don't define the industry as a whole any more than a Hollywood movie would be defined by a specific genre or theme. Bollywood is not the only film industry in India, but is the one I am most familiar with and thus will be looking at. It's worth noting that this analysis will only talk about Bollywood movies, not real life. Films will often reflect the society that they were made in, but elements are exaggerated or ignored for the sake of entertainment. Please do not make any broad statements about real situations, locations, or people based on movies. Mainstream media cannot capture the nuance of living somewhere, especially for marginalized communities. Both of these explanations are very brief summaries. The best way to learn about the source material is to read or watch it. However, this is the basic information needed in order to understand this video. I'll be making broad comparisons and individual case studies to elaborate. For the sake of time, the movies and books cited in this video will be as limited as I can manage, and I will try to cover multiple points in most cases. So now, I'm gonna make my case for why I think Warrior Cats works perfectly with the narrative found in Bollywood movies, and why we should really be using those songs for more adaptations and projects. This will include discussing spoilers for the books and movies. I have the specific list of media I'm referencing on screen just in case you want to avoid spoilers. I will be having specific timestamps in the video too. I will be putting content warnings, but keep in mind that is only for what I discuss in this video. If you are going to read any of these books or watch the movies, please do your own research beforehand. I'm also choosing my books and movies based on what gives the clearest example, while also being mainstream enough that it's easy to read up on online. Putting a book or movie here does not mean I like it, support its message, or the people making it. This is mostly for a somewhat academic analysis. Now, there are many similarities with the way the two are written. This is partially due to the society and culture the creators grew up in. But for this video, I will mostly be ignoring that. This isn't to overlook or play down the biases in writing. That is an important element during most media analysis. But these products are for an audience to consume at face value, so I want to focus my own discussion on what can be seen at that level. Warriors live in a large clan comprising of many generations under one roof. A single clan will host multiple family lines and is intended to do so forever. Warriors live in that one place from birth till death. This is similar to a joint family structure seen mostly in older movies. There are minor differences. In movies, the joint family is a single couple and all of their descendants. This passes down through men. Women are expected to go to their husband's family home after marriage. This is not the case with warriors, nor are they intended to be all related to a single couple. A clan functions both as a joint family and a society in warriors. Society does play a role in Bollywood as well, and it usually means the people within the same social circle as the main character, not the diverse culture at large. Thunderclan is most frequently shown as an example of ideal clan life in the books. As the most prominent clan, it is the best example given to the audience. Kabhi Khushi Kabhi Gham, also known as KG3, is a 2001 film about a joint family torn apart by the conflict between the head of the family and his son. In both cases, there is an order of people in charge, mostly led by the oldest member of the family, who is also presumed to be the wisest. There are a group of people consulted and a second-in-command who provides support to the leader. There is also an individual who is given additional responsibilities as the eventual successor to the head of the family. There are several differences between the two as well. Age, gender, and relations are a larger factor in the social hierarchy of a Bollywood joint family in comparison to warrior cats. Certain elements that are common between the two, such as the leader and second-in-command being the oldest husband and wife, are coincidences on the part of Thunderclan and won't be fully counted in this case. Aside from the power structure, daily life is comparable as well. Distribution of work and resources is managed by the second-in-command. She is most actively involved with speaking to the other family members, mediating disputes, and acting as a consultant. For Thunderclan, this is the deputy squirrel flight. For KG3, this is the mother. When holding large meetings, the intention is for the family head to announce news rather than to debate all members. When seeking advice, the family heads will often go to experienced or senior members rather than the younger members of their family or group. Of course, a common conflict in both media is the other members protesting during the meeting, resulting in arguments. When members of a family reach a certain age, they are expected to contribute to the needs of their community. For warrior cats, this takes the form of apprenticeship and becoming a warrior, healer, or nursery caretaker. For Bollywood, this means excelling in school, college, and then settling into a career. The warrior's naming ceremony and clan test can be compared to Bollywood movies in this case, as both hold a similar value in their society. Cats are given a prefix and a suffix. The prefix is given by their parents during their early childhood, and the suffix is given by the family head after the cat has completed an apprenticeship exam. The suffix is related to the personal accomplishments of the individual. The prefix is often based on a cat's appearance, the circumstances of their birth, or is a legacy name given to them to honor a dead family member. This can put expectations on the cat, such as in the case of Flamepaw. Flamepaw is named after his ancestor, Fireheart, and the two are often compared in the books. In Bollywood, names don't mean much. The expectation falls on following a certain career instead, usually due to family expectation or legacy. The narrator of Three Idiots, Farhan, is told mere minutes after birth that his father wants him to be an engineer. Warrior suffixes are given after passing an assessment. This comes after a training period and marks their change into adulthood. Flamepaw is initially named Flameheart after Fireheart. He argues about it and is renamed Nightheart as a compromise. The insistence of maintaining heart in his name is interesting to me. On a surface level, it's because he's a black cat, so of course they'd remove the flame part. But he also failed his assessment twice, which is the first time we've seen a character do that, especially a main character. With that context, heart can be seen as acknowledging his determination to push forward. As I said before, Bollywood focuses on careers, not names. So the characters obeying these expectations can be seen as the assessment being passed. At birth, Farhan's father declares he will be an engineer. Another relative adds the title onto his name. Farhan gets into a top engineering school but struggles throughout the movie to be a wildlife photographer. He almost always has a camera with him and is one of the only people taking photos, as if to highlight his passion. His chosen identity and achievements as a photographer define his presence in the movie. In both cases, Nightheart and Farhan confront their father figures about their identity conflict and come to an understanding after initial backlash. Another similarity is that both cases conform to society, though this is more of a meta comparison. Warriors can be known to be flawed, but they're still shown to care for their clan and provide. Even Nightheart, who is shown to resent much of his family and clan, is a competent warrior and able to provide service in a socially acceptable way, as of the end of River at least. Farhan is able to convince his family partially because he has a job offer from a world-famous photographer already. Neither case has the character take a leap of faith into a job they aren't proven to be good at or experimenting with inventing a new type of work. Expectation placed on someone can apply to other aspects of their lives, not just work. In both the books and the movies, marriage is heavily scrutinized. A warrior clan is a society of its own with different families. When a cat wants a spouse, the only option for them are the members of the clan, the families which have passed the wife check and deemed appropriate. If they try to marry outside the clan, it becomes a question of loyalty and custody over the warriors and kids. This rule is frequently broken, and cats would either have to keep their relationship a secret, have one leave their clan to join the other, or elope to somewhere outside of the clan territories. In River, the clans established new rules to allow the cats to change clans for love. This requires the approval of both clans, which are stand-ins for families and societies. After this approval, the cats have to pass a test. There are no rules on which cat has to leave, but the only one we see in River is a she-cat. This automatically brings a similarity with the way joint families work, as mentioned before. Right from the approval of the family and community to the eloping being a frequent solution. During the test, we see this cat being criticized by her future mother-in-law, Berryheart. The test is completed to the satisfaction of the family head, but Berryheart is unhappy with this outcome, as well as how the test was completed. This critical mother-in-law trope is common in movies like the film Two States. The movie focuses on a couple who convince their families to approve of their marriage despite cultural differences. The movie shows both sides of the struggle, but the guy is the main character, so we see more of a focus on his family and his girlfriend winning over his mom. The girl tones down her personality to impress her in-laws, being polite and respectful. Despite this, the mother-in-law goes out of her way to find flaws in her. A good example would be when the daughter offers to cook and the mother just dumps a lot of challenging items onto her, then gets upset when she messes up and her boyfriend helps her out. In both cases, the daughter-in-laws fulfill the requirements set by the parents, and it's obvious that if they were from the same society, there wouldn't be any issue. Both mothers also use very similar talking points. Starclan is really complicated to talk about. For this section, we're actually not going to have a case study. It will instead just be a very detailed explanation. Starclan is central to Warrior Cat's culture, both in the books and according to fans. I've heard a lot of people say that the Warrior Society is deeply religious. I would like to counter that a bit. I think Starclan is more of a cultural identity than a religious one. For anyone unaware of the difference, religion is what a specific person or group believes, usually involving in some kind of practice. To be culturally something, the country or place has to have built their laws, holidays, and understanding of faith around a certain religion, even if there are individuals who do not have that faith. For example, you could be an atheist and still be culturally Christian if you were born in a country where Christmas and Easter are the ones that get the longest holidays, or where it's considered to be the quote-unquote default. It has nothing to do with the individual person. This is also a very simple explanation, so I would suggest looking this up yourself. How is this related to warrior cats? Let's put medicine cats and leaders aside for a minute. Has any other cat ever gone to the Moonstone or Moonpool recently? Aside from the one time they go as an apprentice in Arc 1 and Poppy Frost once. She goes because of a crisis that she needs the guidance of Starclan for, but that's not really a unique problem. With a society so built around the Code and Starclan, it should be first instinct for them to seek out spiritual help to their problems. And they do have a lot of problems. But these cats don't go to the holy places that have been established, nor do they have shrines or anything in their camps that's supposed to represent Starclan. There's no form of prayer or even thinking about Starclan in any way aside from maybe thanking them for food. Modern Bollywood protagonists aren't very religious themselves, I'll admit, but they will usually have a religious figure they have to oppose or fight against the culture in some way, as well as just some scenes of them participating in cultural and religious festivals. A good example of this is the movie Toilet, where the antagonists oppose building a toilet in a priest's house because it might make the place unholy. This is also combined with them clinging to certain traditions and rejecting Western influences in one scene. There's a lot of overlap in religion and culture here. Some movies may even have the main character be shown with religious imagery. For warrior cats, the closest to prayer we have is them going to the medicine cats for advice. But even then, the cats themselves aren't having a close relation with their spirituality. Medicine cats are a filter through which clan cats experience Starclan. Also, and correct me if I'm wrong, but do they even go to the medicine cats because of Starclan? Medicine cats are isolated from others and supposed to be above all the petty drama and painted with this wise brush. When you can't talk to anyone outside of your clan and everyone in that clan is friendly with the person you don't like, they're kind of the best option for advice. It's not a good situation, of course, and the Bollywood equivalent is to get advice from a friend or family member who is supposed to be above the current drama, like consulting the grandfather in Sonu Ki Tuki Sweetie or even Kapoor and Sons. But getting back to the main topic, my point is that Starclan is largely absent from the life of an average warrior. Cloudtail, Needlepaw and Sleekpaw are all cats established to have little to no belief in Starclan, and they haven't even suffered from it. The ShadowClan stuff wasn't because they didn't believe in Starclan, it was because they were unhappy with the traditions of a warrior code, which is a cultural aspect. And you might ask, well, what about Mothwing? So now we get to the healers. Mothwing is only really given shit for not believing because she's a healer and it's part of her job description. When she was a warrior, this wasn't a problem at all. But she still goes to the holy place and isn't being socially outcast from the group when they discuss their prophetic dreams, for the most part. Leaders are similar, where by nature of them giving multiple lives, they do sort of have to believe in it. But aside from the first arc, I don't think we've seen any leaders go to the moon pool to try to talk with Starclan about any problems, which to me suggests that this can be seen through a cultural and not a religious lens again. Leaders use the threat of the warrior code more than the threat of Starclan. It's usually the old people bringing that up. The warrior code did come from Starclan and started out as a belief system, but as the generations go past, there is a disconnect from it. Non-healer protagonists rarely get visions or dream visits, so for all we know, they could have no belief in it. Also, because the warrior code applies to someone like Cloudtail, it can't be religious anymore because it is a law. It is how the government of these cats works and how they judge the morality of actions. In Arc 1, Cloudpaw is yelled at for eating before feeding the clan, which is breaking the rules. Aside from offending Fireheart, his spirituality is not the reason he is in trouble as a warrior. Going to look at a specific example again, the whole soul situation with ShadowClan. ShadowClan stops believing in StarClan and therefore stops following the warrior code. This is a little hard to explain, but I don't feel like it contradicts my point in any way, despite it feeling like it probably should. The law is in place because of Starclan, so if we don't want Starclan, we should write a different law. Except our government, aka Blackstar, our leader, is too incompetent to actually make a new law, so it's chaos. That is basically how I see the ShadowClan situation. The two are linked, but you can have one without the other. Making this whole distinction is important to my interpretation. Movies don't always feature religious protagonists, like I said, but they will have religious imagery or rigid cultural attitudes that the main character has to fight against. Granted, warrior stories don't fight these directly, but neither does Bollywood really. There's no large-scale change to society in either case, just the protagonist struggling to find their place in it and managing to make extremely traditional old people move half an inch on a single rule. Which is why I'm personally okay with how the cats whine about change in River, even if I do understand the frustration the fandom has towards this. It's slow but realistic. Coming back to Starclan though, there is another potential interpretation of them. Humor me as I go through what we basically know about them. When a non-clan cat dies, it wanders around as a ghost. When a clan cat dies, they can either go to Starclan or the Dark Forest. This is decided on by a panel of judges as of Squirrelflight's Hope. Based on what I know about One Star's book, he was not given a trial but just asked to reflect. That's probably a commentary on warrior cat sexism, but trust me, we will get there. The stakes on these trials are pretty high. Starclan is a bright, prey-filled land where cats can be with loved ones. The Dark Forest is the opposite, dark, devoid of food, and lonely. The cats here struggle to find each other and will fade as living cats forget about them. We are told that Starclan cats can also fade at one point, but even if we do consider this canon, the Dark Forest is much worse because the cats are starving and miserable for their whole afterlife until it very slowly ends. We also know that this is a permanent decision. Dark Forest cats who have helped Starclan aren't allowed to switch or given any path towards working on redemption, We don't know if a Starclan cat can later be sent to the Dark Forest, as it hasn't happened on screen, or in the books, I should say. Ashfur got close, but his ghost died before we could see whether that would happen. Speaking of Ashfur, Starclan's judgment isn't perfect. They admit to making a mistake in allowing Ashfur into Starclan. Given all of these factors, getting into Starclan is extremely high stakes. How do you go about doing that? Well, by following the warrior code, which might seem simple, but it really isn't. Cats who obeyed the warrior code ended up in the Dark Forest, and some who broke it ended up in Starclan. So obedience isn't a factor in that, which is the biggest problem in universe. There's no real guide on how to get into Starclan. You can say that all good cats go here and bad cats go there, but this is very limited. A prominent example is Frecklewish, who ended up in the Dark Forest despite having the same level of blame and control in Mapleshade's kids dying as Ravenwing or Oakstar, both of whom are in Starclan. It can actually be argued that she has less power over the situation than those two, but even if we were to say that they all share equal blame, and this isn't even to argue whether what she did was moral or not. That is not relevant whatsoever. What I want to say and what matters is that you can do the same action as someone else, but have a different outcome in terms of the afterlife. With that in mind, there's no real way to be sure of what to do, so they cling to the code. Starclan might punish you if you stray from the code, even if you believed you did the right thing, so stick with the group. Don't support anyone risky. Don't go against the code even if the situations are absolutely ridiculous, because what if? This interpretation can also explain why they dig their heels in at any talk of change, because if it turns out that they were wrong, they might not get into their nice little retirement plan. This interpretation does show Starclan more as a religion since it's an afterlife. I don't think this entirely contradicts my earlier point because it's both things. For the cats who don't believe, Starclan is represented by the warrior code and is nothing but law. For those who do believe, it is both the law and the belief system behind it. The whole thing is a really nuanced topic full of grey area though. I could go on for days about this one topic in circles, but instead let's just end this section here and move on to the next part of the analysis. The basic point is that even in this one discussion, you can kind of see how it's both religious and cultural. There's a lot of ways to interpret that, and they do overlap with each other. While scripting this video, the excerpt from Sky came out. A lot of what I noticed there was present in previous books, but I felt it was really highlighted here. The concept that the good of the whole is greater than the good of the individual. This section will be short rather than a case study because I feel like this is something that can really just be seen using the previous examples too. All three main characters are going through something. For Sunbeam, she's an adult whose life plan has been completely upturned. Something she built her whole life around has been rejected, and now she has to heal her broken heart and figure herself out. Nightheart has just stood up for himself and finally made a step towards exploring and defining who he is. But now he's dealing with the social rejection and stigma of that choice. He thought his family would support him and took them for granted, but they're rejecting him now. He's essentially being punished from rejecting expectations. And Frostpaw, she's a child who lost her mother, now leaving her completely alone. All three of them are grieving and trying to figure something out, but they're not fully allowed to process in their own way. They either use the clan's needs as an excuse or are made to put their feelings aside for the sake of their clan. This isn't uncommon in media. Characters will be told to think of others to keep them moving and from slipping. You could make the argument that in the case with warriors, the way this excerpt is written reads very similar to someone being told, "Don't do this, what would the neighbors say?" Which is super common theme in every single movie I've listed in this entire video. In general, we're kind of moving towards a point where, while I do have other movies planned out for case studies, I don't know if you really need to do one for each section. By this point, you're probably a little familiar with the common ground, so I'd like to just be able to talk about them. A clan is a society. The people inside of it can have their own personality, beliefs, and flaws, but they're tied together in a way that puts those second. Taking the Sky excerpt, Gulsoup says that Sunbeam can find a full Shadow Clan cat instead of Blazefire, who isn't clan born. She doesn't really comment about anything that might have attracted Sunbeam to Blazefire. Sunbeam won't find a handsome mate or a funny one or a brave one. She will find a cat who is from ShadowClan. This is the core theme within ShadowClan, the refusal to accept change. And once again, I'm looking at Berryheart. Her problem with Spireclaw's mate is that she was from SkyClan. In the eyes of clan cats, those in their society are the only good choice because they're from that society. Whether they're good cats or get along with their partners is secondary. If we widen our scope a bit, a mate from another clan is still acceptable. This might seem weird since 90% of the time it's all hidden and forbidden, but bear with me. First of all, they have a law to make that cat a member of your clan, which is acknowledging the illegal bad relationship and making it a good and legal, and yay, everyone's happy. Second is, clearly everyone knows this happens. It happens so much, and while the cats and kids are given shit for it, they're not exiled. They're given the chance to prove their loyalty to their clan, their society. Cases of cats being with outsiders is much more rare. In the modern books, this usually results in that cat joining the clans. And of course, there's a reason for that. From a story perspective, a cat from another clan is bad, but at least they follow the warrior code. A cat outside any clan law? That's unthinkable. They also did make this kind of story much harder to do now that the main POV clans and cats aren't anywhere near the endless stream of kitty pets that used to be around in Arc 1. I specifically wrote down the sisters and KG3 as a case study comparison here. We're gonna just very briefly go through it. The sisters have their own way of doing things. Regardless of its morality, it has its own internal logic and is proven to be accurate. They can summon ghosts. The Toms can communicate with the earth. There is no reason for the clan cats to reject them because they've also had cats with powers and seen spirits. So the sisters' culture doesn't contradict the way they lead their lives, and yet they still want to drive them out and shudder at their beliefs. This isn't a topic I want to go into a lot of detail with, so I will keep it brief. I debated even having this section, but I did want to represent as much of my argument as I could. This is sort of a natural extension of the previous point. It's not just about hating outsiders. It's about hating them because the warrior society must be better in every way. It's also an extension of the Starclan discussion. For warriors, the nationalism is the warrior code. They have a way of life that guarantees them food, shelter, and community until they die. In the afterlife, the default is to wander around as a ghost. They can be saved that fate by being in a clan and thus going to Starclan, which has endless food and where they can be with their loved ones. And we've previously established how terrible the alternatives to Starclan are and how hard it is to get in. But there is another thing I want to add to the whole Starclan stubbornness. Something that was probably not intentional, but a coincidence that nags at me a bit. The lake is not the cat's original home, as far as they know. We, the readers, and cats like Jayfeather know that it is. But as far as the clan cats know, they used to live in their true ancestral home and were pushed out into this new place. It's been many generations, but up until recently, people who were alive during the Great Journey were in charge, calling all the shots. The first arc was a lot more hostile, and the world depicted in that shows that the old forest tends to be a bit more on the side of these cats trying to survive, them clinging more strongly to Starclan and their traditions. This is mostly because at the start of Arc 1, the authors needed a hostile world that fights Firestar's existence and that can be changed. But in the subtext, the old forest represents the warrior tradition at their most basic and unfiltered self. Coming to the lake was caused by external events, and now they need to heal and re-establish themselves. Instead, the clans try to maintain the same structure of the old forest, despite circumstances being different and many, many opportunities for more cultural exchange and open-minded scenarios coming about. The clans on some level do become open-minded because they accept Daisy and others into their groups, but there are a lot of strings attached, and the clan tradition itself is something that these cats are clinging onto for dear life. To an extent, the clans are suffering because of the actions of humans, the greater force that they can reasonably take out on their own, unlike a fox or a badger. They're also suffering because of the restrictions of the warrior code, which is something that is being addressed in the latest arc. Addressing that is still revealing a whole bunch of problems, as well as many being unaddressed. But rather than having the capacity to understand and tackle these issues on a wider scale, they instead turn to scapegoating others. SkyClan is the problem, the sisters are, kitty pets hunting on their land is. Everything is a problem except the warrior code that makes them live like that, which they cannot question without facing social isolation and even having their food and shelter taken away. These cats learn to hunt, but they don't know how to survive without a community, so it's reasonable why they wouldn't walk away from the clan. To an extent, Nightheart is going through this in the Exerpt. He challenged the idea of identity in the clans. Instead of letting those around him determine who he is, he rejected that name. He's trying to find out for himself who he is and what his identity is. Based on his conversation with Myrtle Bloom, he doesn't know yet. Maybe because he didn't give it much thought, maybe because it's never been a concept in his lifetime. Who knows? We see him suffer the consequences for this, in the form of his family being hurt and betrayed by it. I'm not saying that they're right or wrong, that this is well written, or even that this is how it will play out. This is just my analysis to help me enjoy this book series a little bit more. On a side note, a funny thing that I realized recently is one of the reasons why I like Nightheart. The way his story is set up, especially when you look at it through this analysis, it's kind of similar to some of the ideas I had behind Munzel. And I wrote that with the intention of the main character taking everyone's words in the worst light and being so trapped in their own head that they only saw one way out, plus identity struggles. For those who might be new and not know, Munzel is my now multiple award-winning game about a young person who has to convince their family to let them move out for self-exploration. Just a little self-promo, since the last time I wrote about Munzel it only had the one award, and I've been talking for about half an hour or more by this point. If you want to go play and leave a review or buy the game, link to my age profile is below. I highly appreciate it if you do. But anyways, back to the analysis. Age is a weird topic to bring up in Warrior Cats because while the cats do have a vague timeline by which they grow up, it's not clearly established what anyone's age is. Especially when you consider the in-between books, timeline stuff goes all over the place. So instead of focusing on the months and years of age, this will focus more on the stages of life. Kit, which is young child, apprentice, which is teen, warriors, adults, and elders, senior members. Warrior society has some pretty strict rules that ease up as you go through life. Kittens cannot leave camp. Apprentices can only do so with a warrior. Warriors can go out anytime, but they need to be around in case of patrol or emergency. Elders can do whatever they want. The only limits are their own physical ones, not really a limit put by society. They don't have a curfew. As mentioned in the joint family section, leaders have the ultimate authority, but they can occasionally go to senior warriors for advice. This gives one more level of authority assigned with age. When there's a clan meeting, it can turn into an argument. During this, there tends to be a focus on individual cats who are peers to the main character, which makes sense. Older cats tend to be more of a group, with one voicing an opinion and the others frequently nodding along or voicing their agreement. Elders don't engage with the argument, but when they do, it's given a lot of gravity. How often has an old cat objected by mentioning a past war, leader, or showing some sign of their ancient wisdom, and the rest of the clan sits in shamed silence for a beat? How often are their words given more value than the main character's age group is? Look at Greystripe during the Broken Code if you want a clear example of this. You could see the treatment of him versus Squilf as a case of either sexism or age. The former may seem obvious, and we will get there soon, trust me. But the books themselves mention his age more than anything. He's wise because he's been around and led the clan previously. This is nonsense, to be honest. If you compare the time he led to the time Squilf was deputy and even the circumstances under which they both had to manage their clans. But whenever the cats are around Greystripe, his experience is brought up as a positive. Cats can't argue with him because he was deputy before they were born, so shut it, kid. He isn't the only case either. In Arc 2, Mousefur jumps up and makes a whole clan announcement. Because they've served their clan already, the elders aren't scolded for this in the way that a young warrior might be. I told you we'd get here. Gender in warrior cats is, not good. I won't go into a big explanation of warrior cat sexism as a whole, since Sunnyfall has a great video on this. Link for that should be popping up on screen or in the description. As previously stated, media does not exist in a vacuum. The social norms and biases of the creators will influence how they write certain elements, and that applies to everything in this video, not just the sexism. You can explain most of the writing in Warriors and Bollywood through that perspective, but like I said, we're just gonna focus on the final product. I'd like to preface this whole section by saying, yes, there is sexism in the world of warrior cats and Bollywood. For the latter, it's often a reflection of real-world sexism, and because it's so heavily based on reality, I think it's unavoidable. Warrior cats could have easily made sexism not exist in the world, but they chose to put it in. I don't think it's inherently a problem to do so. People can find comfort in writing a character going through and overcoming similar problems as them. And as a children's series, it's important to educate readers that this does happen and that it's wrong. If the series only is focused on Toms, I'd be less forgiving. But we do have she-cat main characters who face sexism. Someone like, say, Fireheart being told that all she-cats will become queens eventually doesn't stick out in his mind. Why would it? He's just accepting this is how they are, both as an outsider to the clan's belief and as a guy. But someone like Hollyleaf actively rejects this, showing that this is a standard that's wrong. My problem with sexism in warrior cats comes from it being unintentional and therefore harder for the authors to change. Characters can't change society if the creator doesn't know what the problem is and keeps writing that in. The characters themselves don't have the chance to really work on fighting against it on a larger scale because it's not something that's being done intentionally. For this section, let's look at the life of a clan cat. Sexism isn't a part of the system, but rather in the mindset of the community. There isn't a rite of passage or a rule that makes cats do anything based on gender. However, we do see the attitudes of cats that push things in that direction. Neither gender, because there's only 2 in warrior cats, is asked or pressured into having a mate beyond, oh, one day you'll fall in love. But she-cats in relationships are asked about kids, where Toms aren't as much. To compare to Bollywood, both people are usually asked or even pressured about marriage and kids. Women more so on the kids front, which is painted as a favor to be done to the parents. The same can be said for marriage, especially in older movies. The most blatant example of sexism in these books is Squirrel Flight, especially during the Broken Code. She is supposed to take over, but is undermined and disrespected by younger guys who want to be leader instead, like Lion Blaze. This part is obvious. What is less obvious is her behavior into River. For that, I would like to hold up the same general model that Berry Heart falls under, the overly critical mother-in-law. Squirrel Flight is a cat who has been this open-minded and stubborn cat her whole life. She's always been fighting for what she believes in, and is usually one of the more progressive cats. And her husband is the leader, with her being his second in command. Finally, a chance to use the power she has for what's right. And of course, with her husband leading, he's most likely to listen to her and understand her. Except that's not what happens. I'm sure everyone has seen Moonkitty's Bramblestar video because it covers all of Squilf and Bramble's relationship. If not, go watch it as I'm going to be referring to that here. Hey, I might be sending you to a lot of other videos, but at least I'm not giving you the several papers I had to read for my dissertation. Time and time again, when Squilf has pushed for something and advocated for others, she has been hurt and torn down. This is bad enough if it's just Bramblestar, but you could excuse that by saying, hey, it's just the one guy. The rest of the clan appreciates her, but obviously they can't speak up to their leader. And then that one guy is gone, leaving these sympathizers, the clan that surely supports her but can't speak up, to follow her. And right away, they all turn on her and proceed to question her, undermine her, and act like Squirrel Flight hasn't always kept their best interests at heart. So by the time we get to River, of course she's mean. Of course she's tired of fighting for the well-being of cats who don't appreciate her, of watching herself and other she-cats get torn down for stepping out of line, even when she is still doing everything that society expects of her. When I look at her treatment of Flamepaw and Nightheart, I don't see a cat whose personality has been changed as much as I see a woman tired of the constant garbage thrown at her, who just doesn't want her grandson to go through the same thing. It's her version of tough love, making sure that he doesn't step out of line so he doesn't get hurt like she does, without realizing that she has become what she hated. Or maybe she does realize it, but believes she is entitled to acting this way because she endured crap her whole life from others. To look at the Bollywood side, there's a lot of movies with sexism, either as the main antagonist or unintentional. The previously mentioned films all have subtle sexism that the women face. In older movies, the women are often reduced to the role of the wife or mother, and their motivations are driven by how their husbands or kids have been treated rather than themselves. In modern movies, sexism is more of an antagonistic force for the female lead to overcome or fight against. Truthfully, it's hard to compare the two without repeating myself. Back to Squilf though, I just wanted to say a few things. I really doubt that they put all of that thought into her actions. It's likely they just wanted at least one antagonistic force in leadership, and it couldn't be Bramblestar because they wanted him to have to step down. Which means that if Squilf does become leader, she could very well be making Lightheart's life miserable. Ah well. Either way, we can't fully ignore that Warriors just doesn't put that much thought and care into the character work. I can still think this, and it'll make me enjoy the book's writing more and give a little more depth and personality to these characters, but it's not really what's there. There's a lot more we can look at with just Squirrel Flight. Everyone meddling in her love life, her being blamed in the books and fandom for rejecting Ashwa, the lying and demonization of her being barren to be pressured into taking the children, the theme of her adopted kids being betrayed despite her showing them unconditional love. We would be here all day if we did that though. Okay, that was a lot of heavy stuff. I regret that the two share so many negative qualities, but it's not all bad. Now that we've established how the society and structures of oppression are similar, we can move on to the actual contents of the media themselves. And we start with family drama. Family drama is the core of what Warriors and Bollywood are. Warrior Cats does have some interesting world building that set up a social and political structure of cat society. But what largely happens in that is personal drama. Shoo, get out of here with your political strife and conflict. We're here for that family stuff. Even in something as violent as the Dark Forest battle, it's still centered around personal drama and the failings of society. If someone tells you they're reading current day Warrior Cats for the fight scenes, it's a lie. There are hardly any fights, but there is so much drama in every single arc. The main plot of Arc 1 is about everyone losing their mind because a house cat joins the clans, plus so much relationship and side drama. Arc 2 starts with the destruction of nature, but then slowly turns into romance and family drama, plus the Wind Clan stuff. Arc 3 is about relationship drama among everyone in the clan. Arc 4 is relationship drama, the sequel, in hell. Arc 6 is about a guy destroying 3 clans because of his issues with his dad, and then more drama revolving Sky Clan and Shadow Clan. Arc 7 is romance drama returning from the grave. And now River is about 3 separate people going through some intense social struggles. Not to say that this is all bad, just that it's undeniable. I didn't count Dawn of the Clans because I haven't read it yet. And also, when I say drama, I am not trying to dismiss or downplay the real situations that these books are loosely based on. It's just that it's Warrior Cats and these things are not the best written, so I don't really expect them to cover serious topics of abandonment as anything more than conflict for the main characters. And this isn't just the main series books either, but super editions, novellas, etc. By putting the focus of one entire book on one character or one specific plotline, they create so much extra drama and conflict in each clan. Reading Arc 1, I don't care about River Clan, but reading Crookedstar's book, I learned that all the apprentices waited so Leopard Kid wouldn't be alone. Reading her book, I learned about the stigma that surrounded her and the complicated relationship she has with others. Whole plot points and side characters can just exist and happen in these. And that's the whole point of these books. It's to expand on one element of the original arc. But it doesn't just do that, it gives us more breadcrumbs and hints to other characters and their drama. Did we need to know about Tall Star's revenge or Crooked Star's life or Blue Star's life? No. But it gave us more conflict, content, and characters. Like, how would the fandom be without Thrush Belt? Bollywood rarely does movies to expand on the relationships on the side. You usually get everything in one 2 to 3 hour sitting. In all movies like Avatar, Bhagban, and Hum Saath Saath Hai, the first 30 minutes or so go to establishing characters. What are their relationships to each other? What do their neighbors think of them? What does this random guy who shows up for one scene think of the main character? I'd explain why this is, but that would be going into real-world details, so I'll skip it. By the time the plot starts, you know the character somewhat personally, as well as their family history and the history of every important person. For Warriors, it would be like if the first book was replaced by Blue Star's Prophecy and Yellowfang's Secret, after which we introduced Rusty, or just reading according to the timeline. With all that, it's worth looking at why this drama is so central to Warriors, and what would these books be without it? To answer the second question first, without the drama, Warriors would just be more like a nature documentary, probably. Or at least have them be less like people with emotional drama and more like animals where the conflict is always caused by food, shelter, and the elements. There are still conflicts in Warrior Cats, of course, but I don't remember when prey shortage and stealing was the central conflict in a whole 6-book arc the way Ashwar's revenge was in the Broken Code. Why is this drama so central? It's the easiest to write a character arc to emotional conflicts. It's easier to relate to your audience. That's the short answer. It would be a fun writing challenge because you can write an arc revolving around natural conflicts, but this is the most personal to a lot of people. We understand friendships dissolving, relationship problems, and more better than we would understand problems of nature, especially when the cats actively choose to not get adopted by humans and solve all of these problems. Another reason I would say this is central to Warriors and movies is because of the world building. Living in nature is a backdrop for the family drama. Really think about it. What changes if these cats are house cats? They won't fight, but they can still play out their little soap operas in each other's backyards. Not to say that this isn't important, of course. Clans form because cats in groups can survive better according to the lore. And by removing the clan loyalty element, you basically one-hit KO all forbidden love. Or make it more like that one trope where 2 pets are in love but their owners hate each other, which is hilarious to think about. Fanfic writers, please give me a world where Bristleroot or some other couple is trying to be in love while their owners go through every stage of misery and hate. The music. Oh boy, the music. Is probably one of the things people know most about Bollywood. Almost all of them are musicals. Warrior Cats? Very much isn't. But if you look them up on YouTube, you will find a thriving fan community with some amazing multi-animator projects, AMVs, PMVs, and a whole lot more. I myself, along with many others, primarily engage with the fandom through these projects and don't care too much about the books beyond wanting context for animations we see. There are so many creative projects using music from a wide variety of artists. Some songs you'd listen to and think of a character just right away. Others require an elaborate AU or specific reading to really understand. Some just fit a vibe and have the art direction bridge the gap between the character and the lyrics. Something I've seen people worry about is accidentally copying each other's ideas because some songs and characters just go together so well. In my opinion, it's not a big issue because 2 projects can have the same idea but execute them differently. For people who might still be worried, there is a solution. Yep, Bollywood songs. Now before anyone says that this is biased, You are watching the why you should mix Bollywood with Warriors videos, so obviously I'm gonna encourage that. But really, with so many plots, social structures, and conflicts being similar, there is a high chance that a lot of the music will also have themes that just fit a given character or situation. This just applies to anything, really. Expand the horizon of media consumption, and you'll be able to pull inspiration from so many more sources. When it comes to Bollywood specifically, and my projects, some songs are a bit more artistic and vague, like Mai or Kari Kari, while others are so specific that it's hard to imagine anyone other than a single character singing it, like the Stan.
Hello, editing, never aspects, whatever, here to just say a quick thing. Originally, I had a whole section here where I go over every single project that I have released on YouTube currently, like my personal projects, AMVs and PMVs, and my map. As well as also going over some of the ones I planned for the future. I realized very late that I missed one and then I considered adding it in, but then I'm just given how long this video has already been in production, it's been several months, and just the sheer amount of content here, the actual talking about my projects was adding another 30 minutes onto it. So I felt like I should just cut it short. I might make a follow-up video depending on how things go. Like, I don't want to make a lot of videos and make this a whole series, but I might make one which is just talking about my projects if there is interest. If not, then it's whatever. I just won't make it. So yeah, that's kind of the plan for now. But I just because I'm just popping in to say this because it may have sounded like I was because I did reference my projects a couple of times in the previous scenes, and then I was like setting up to talk about them later, and now the later is not happening. So yeah, I'm more than happy to talk about them still because I have the recording, I have the script. I could like go into a lot more detail actually because I talked about several projects and it added 30 minutes of talking, but I know for a fact that there was a lot of stuff I didn't say, so I could definitely, if I made a video just talking about those projects, go on for way longer. But anyways, yes, back to the actual scheduled video.
A lot of the comparisons I made today could be attributed to standard soap operas and drama shows. So why this specific medium? Well, you're right about that. Theoretically, there's no real reason why this is better than anything else. Sure, the movies being musicals is a big thing. Bollywood has some banger music, and the fact that no one else is trying to use that is a crime. But it's just that I am a person. This is a normal part of my life. We have foreign movies and local movies. Fandom is an international space, and I wanted to share my own experience. I do think that the music aspect pushes it above just dismissing it as a soap opera, and it makes a case for why I would love to see more of this interpretation out there. And also, I kind of have been talking for over an hour as of recording this about this interpretation and why this makes sense. But I also know that not everyone is interested, which I'm fine with. I would love to see more of these songs used in projects, but even if they aren't, I'll still be here making my OC works and doing what I like, possibly with some of these songs. If you're interested in getting into Bollywood but aren't sure where to start, don't worry. I'm actually planning to do a video or stream sometime after this video goes out with a friend of mine, discussing and recommending movies. I apologize for the long video, but this is really the only one I want to make about this topic. I enjoy my interpretation and intend to consume and create Warriors content with that context if I continue to create it. But I don't want to exclusively define my own channel by this and by making multiple videos about it. If you've made it this far, like a genuine thank you for listening to my rambles. I'm really glad to have met so many amazing people through these silly little cat books and my silly little animations of them. I'm always interested in reading what people have to say about this in comments, so like if there's any notable questions, we might answer those in the upcoming video. I'll mostly be using my Discord server or Twitter to share updates on schedules and stuff, unless we get community posts sometime soon. Please be respectful to opinions in the comments. The critical nature of this video is not an excuse to be nasty to any person or culture. This is also the first long video I've done like this, so any advice or feedback is welcome. See you next time. And always remember that there is a place in fandom for you and your experiences. You do not have to tone down your cultural influences or interests to fit in. And if there's no space for you, then you can claw one out for yourself.